Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Just My Thoughts. I'm your host, Lawrence. Today, we have what I like to think of the special episode. I've been looking forward to doing this episode for quite some time. This is the 1 year post getting typed episode. So, basically, I was typed a year ago in Objective Personality, and I'm gonna basically discuss thoughts and whatnot around that. So I've been looking forward to this for a while, and it was like, oh yeah, I can't wait to do this video. I'm gonna talk about this, and I'm gonna talk about that, and of course, when the time came, I couldn't remember anything that I wanted to discuss. As is, I guess, it's just me. What are you gonna do? I did make a list, so I have a list of 14 questions. Um, I'm gonna try to go as in depth as possible on these. Um, I would love this to be like a 3 hour video, but I'm pretty sure that's not what it's gonna end up being. But we're just gonna shoot and see how this goes. If I think of other things, maybe I'll do a part two. Probably not, but you can always hope. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. Hopefully, you can hear me well. I got my mic up, trying to get better with my sound quality. All right, so number one, what made you want to get typed? All right, so, and also let me preface this by saying I'm going off of what I can remember at this moment. So this is probably 95% accurate. Yeah, feminine sensory. Maybe 90% accurate. So it's, of course, just keep that in mind. But as of this moment, these are my answers. So what made me want to get typed? I was noticing these sort of internal patterns. Sort of like, how you notice that you keep doing these things, you keep seeing yourself do them, and you don't know why. It's not as if you're trying to do it, but you just notice you keep repeating things. Why do I keep doing this thing and not learning from the problem it's causing me and turn around and do it all over again? Or why do I keep having this one issue repeatedly? It's just a lot of internal patterns that I was noticing, and I knew of personality typing. Just sort of, it was recommended to me on YouTube. So like, I would occasionally go back and read the profile and stuff like that. At the time, I thought I was an INTJ, but that's what made me want to get typed, want to get deeper into it. I remember watching different channels because there are different systems. People did not 100% agree on things. It was clear to me that there seemed to be something there. And then it was also clear to me that a lot of people seem to be just regurgitating the same thing without giving it much thought or exploring it. They were just pretty much repeating what they had learned. So those things seemed obvious to me, and I was going through and just trying to learn more about it. And even though it seemed like there was something there, I wasn't really convinced. To be honest, I never really got into something like this before. Like, it sounds kind of woo woo bullshit. You know what I'm saying? So I was kind of like, all right, whatever. When I hear people talk about this, Enneagram, I think that's how you pronounce Enneagram. And then there was different systems and the 16 personalities and this, that, whatever. And, it was like something of interest, but I just wasn't really sold on it. It was just something of interest. And even after getting typed by 2 typologists, I was still like, oh, okay, all right, this is interesting, but not really heavily invested. It wasn't until I really got into Benjamin's channel and I was able to observe for myself, like see people, interviewed and see them talk about the different, like how they were seeing those functions affect them in their life. It wasn't until that and being able to observe it myself that I was like, oh, okay, all right, this is accurate. This is real. This is truth. So it was like being able to observe it and sort of like, dissect it myself, not really being dependent on like the text and stuff like that. It was sort of like being able to, looking at the empirical evidence. I was able to get a better understanding. It almost sounded like I was doing a scientific method. I wouldn't go that far to say that because I certainly wasn't as strict as you would need to be. But it was more in that area, It was just looking, dissecting, observing, cataloging, thinking, working through, being able to do that, I think, is what really pulled me over the edge, because I was seeing that. I was like, all right, how is it that you're seeing these similarities in these people, and the people sometimes are not even in the same city, in the same country. You're seeing different people, from different parts of the world, and yet you're seeing them say similar things and how the things were affecting them. And it was just like just being able to observe that, because I don't know how many interviews Benjamin has on his channel, but I'm pretty sure it's probably like over 200 or so. And just being able to look at that is really what kind of pulled me in much deeper. And then and actually partly thanks to Benjamin too, because he was kind of like, all right, to get on his show, which I wanted to do, he was like, you got to get typed through the system officially, which that changed everything. Once I got my official type from Objective Personality, that really started the ball rolling. It was a bit of a shock because I got a different type than what I was told from the other 2 typologists. Although I understood as to why I could, it was basically the same function and everything, was just basically in the opposite order. And after observing that and really looking at it, I could see what the confusion was. But I mean, that within itself, you have 3 different systems, 3 different typologists. They don't really do anything together. Hell, most of them kind of battle against the other in certain ways, and yet they were all clearly seeing these same 4 functions, So yeah, it's a lot of adding up and looking at things and observing things and kind of coming in an open-minded, good faith fashion, and really just following the math. It's how I do a lot of my deduction as far as these things are concerned. But yes, I was typed through objective personality. And even though I was typed and I was like, okay, all right, I can see they are accurate on the type. They were saying like, oh, okay, you're going to do this and you're going to do that. And some of the things I was like, yes, all right, clearly, I don't know how the fuck you know that, but that's very true. I don't know how you can know that because you're obviously not in my home. You don't know me, but yeah, that's accurate. And then there were other things where I was like, I don't know about that. I don't know about that. And then later, realized, fuck, they were correct. It's that's the one thing I kind of realized with objective personality, and I've seen it now in other things, but I think I hadn't got into anything so in depth that this was an issue before. Realizing that how they might word things is differently than how I might word things, and realizing what certain words mean to certain people is not necessarily the words that might not necessarily the words you might use to describe those things, or they don't necessarily mean the same thing. And I know that you're like, what do you mean? It's hard to describe without experiencing it, because before I experienced it, I don't think I could have understood it. Somebody had explained it to me. But I guess the best thing I can say is, if I said, what is peace? Right? What is peace? And I might ask you, what's your definition of peace? And you give me what your definition of peace is. Then I say, okay, well, let's look in the dictionary. In the dictionary, it may not be your definition of peace. And then you say, okay, well, in the dictionary, there's one definition of peace. There's your definition of peace. All right, fine. But if you were describing it to me, I might not agree with either of those definitions of peace. You know what I'm saying? Like, realizing that there's so much lost in communication, and realizing that we are very much kind of filling in the blanks, which is in some ways good, some ways bad. I've discovered. Fuck, where was I going with this? We are filling in the blanks. So realizing that was the source of some of the things I disagreed with. I'm just like, yeah, I wouldn't have described it like that. I wouldn't have worded it like that. And I've experienced this too. I have a friend of mine who we used to kind of sometimes have little minor disagreements about that, because the way I would word things and the words that I would use is not. And he seems like a bit of a stickler when it comes to words. Not the words that he would use to describe things or express things. So yeah, that's something I've discovered. Yeah. So hopefully that answers that question. I realize I've gotten a little bit far out, but all right. Number 2. At what point did you start believing there was something here? All right, I've already answered that in the first question. What was your goal? My initial goal was to get typed and use that as a better way of understanding myself. I'm pretty sure that was my very first goals. I believe that I, well, yeah, I got typed, obviously. Used it as a better way of understanding myself, without a doubt, but that is a still ongoing process. So that's not completed, or I don't know if that can ever really truly be completed. But yes, that was the goal of it. And I would say it has worked tremendously in doing that. Tremendously. I've learned so much about myself. It's crazy. First I've learned my functions. I've learned what they seem to be doing. And when I say learned, again, this is not as if they are completed or I feel like I know everything there is to know about them. I'm always still learning and growing. But yes, I've learned, I got some understanding of the functions and how they work. Seeing how they affect me, seeing how they are influencing my perspective about things, the way I perceive things, even communication. I really feel like calling this a personality type is really a bad description. I understand why it's called a personality type, and it makes it more relatable to people, and in a most basic surface level, okay, sure. But to be honest, that's not really what it is. It Getting your type is really a way of understanding how you intake, process, and put out information. And I know you're probably like, well, what does that mean? Seeing how, I can't really describe it any simpler than that. But yes, all right. Put it like this: if you were a savior, if you had sensing, the way you intake information and the way you look at things is a little different than, say, if you were intuitive. These things are it's just a different tool, sort of like, let's say if you were born short versus being born tall, you walking either way, right? But your experience in the world is just different. Not saying one is better than the other, not saying one is worse than the other, but it's just different because interacting with the environment and the people who I would consider part of the environment, it's just going to be different because of your height. Where you might be tall and maybe you got issues. If you're too tall, you got to duck under doorways and stuff like that. Maybe you got knee and joint problems because you're so tall. I think that's common. Or you get people saying, hey, how's the air up there? Dumb shit like that. Or if you're a shorter person and then you're like, it's hard for me to reach stuff. It's a real pain in the ass. People might treat me differently because they're taller than me. You know what I'm saying? Like, these things are just different inherently because one is shorter, one's taller. So that's what I mean. Like, if you were a savior thinker versus a savior feeler, it's going to be different. If you were a savior intuition versus savior sensing, it's going to be different. I don't even actually remember where I was going with that. But I'm just saying these are differences that can affect how you're processing information, how you're going about it. Also, like, even your masculine functions, like seeing how your masculines really push out and affect, you in the world, and your feminine functions, very flexible. Depending on what functions those are, they're going to be different. They're going to manifest different. You're going to do different things. So just saying, like, how you intake, process, and put out information, even taking actions and what actions you take, not take. So if you want to call it a personality type, sure. There is definitely reasons to do that. But I feel like a more accurate description would be, information. Although, I mean, how do you even express that? So maybe it is better to go with personality type. But I'm just saying that's not this. It's the ST in me. All right, it's not an accurate representation of what it is. Sorry, I'm ST. That's just what it is. Has getting type been helpful? Getting type has been extremely helpful. Getting a better understanding of myself through that helped me get a better understanding of other people. Helped me see myself in so many ways I just was not seeing myself. Like, I am double introverted, and I never would have noticed how much I am just in my head all the time and not really paying attention to the external world. Like, I was dealing with it because, of course, obviously I have a body. I'm dealing with it as much as I need to on that basis. When I need to interact with somebody, when somebody's interacting with me, when I'm doing this or doing that. I was doing that. But most of the time, I'm just in my head. And seeing how that's just different for most people. Obviously, people are in their head too, because they also have introverted functions. But seeing how, because of both my introverted functions are masculine, it is very obvious to me how the outside world does not have much of an effect. I should say as big of an effect on me as it tends to do other people. Which is why a lot of things do not bother me, and they tend to bother other people. I think it's also why I don't tend to get offended. A lot of things just, it's like, because I'm so in my head, because that double masculine sleep, those introverted functions, I realized that I only really answer to me. I very much see that. I only really answer to me. I don't really have to answer to the external world. And I think that's also why my principles are so important to me, because those are my way of self-governing, making sure that I am correct and acting accordingly. My sense of right and wrong, my sense of responsibility, I can see that, and I can also see that it's not the case for a lot of people. I can see that the outside world has a much bigger effect on other people than it does me, and I can see that outside world they answer to that so much more than I do. So much more. Um, that's the thing about when you learn more about yourself, you are triangulating off of other people. And as you learn more about yourself, you almost automatically learn more about other people, especially the people that you are closely interacting with and have a lot of personal relationships with, because it's not like you're trying, it's just it's going to happen just by nature of figuring out yourself, and you're interacting with these people, you are in some sense figuring them out as well. um so yes, it has been extremely helpful. I've learned so much about myself. I've learned that I did not realize that I didn't know how other people saw me. Like, I would see people who were so concerned about how people saw them, and that always looked silly to me. It's like, why are you doing that? Like, but little did I know. You know what I mean? Little did I know. Your brain works the way it works, and your functions are your functions. So, of course, if you're set up a certain way, doing it differently looks silly to you. Um, which is why I don't get offended when people tell me, they think I'm doing something incorrectly, or like I was talking to a guy I work with, and he was telling me things that he thought I did wrong, and I was realizing, like, okay, no, I'm not actually doing anything wrong. I'm just, these are things that I do that are different than you. They are different than how you process things and think things should be done. And I was explaining that to him. I was like, it's not necessarily that I'm doing something wrong. I'm just not. I just don't think the way you think. And I was trying to explain, like, there's nothing wrong with that. But that's just what it is. We just don't think the same. I actually think we think quite differently, which is why I enjoy talking to him, because some of the things he say is just so fascinating to me, because it was like I would have never thought that. I would have never came up with that. Of course, that leads to different disagreements. And obviously, we see things quite differently, but yeah, it's just different. Let me see. Were you ever scared of going too deep or learning too much about yourself? No. I came up with that question because talking to people, that was something that I saw quite a few people. It seemed like something they were concerned about. Like, well, what if you see things you don't want to see about yourself? What if you learn things that you don't want to learn about yourself? Which is, I still don't really understand that. Like, it's you. To me, I'm like, it's me. Like, it's all me. How can I be scared of myself? If I learned something about myself that I didn't want to know, I don't know. I don't think, I can't really understand that. I mean, if you have, I don't know, this might also be because I'm devil introverted. Like, I have such a strong internal part of me that it's like, if you knew, I was so bound by morals and certain code of ethics. even before I discovered, about myself, I could see that to a certain extent. So I could see that there are parts of me that just won't let me cross certain lines. Um, so with that in mind, I don't think I've ever done something so horrible that I like hated myself. Um, so maybe that could have something to do with it. Like, I will tell you the one thing that's always kind of been constant since I was like, I would say early 20s. I've always liked who I am. Um, would I like some things to be different? Sure. Would I like some things to be better? Sure. Who wouldn't? Um, would I like different situation, a more fortunate situation? Of course. Who wouldn't? But all that being said, I have always liked who I am. Um, and that's probably because I have those strong inner parts of me. I suspect that has a big part to do with it. But yes, I've always liked who I am. Um, so yes, I've never been scared. Um, I am trying to deep dive within myself to go all the way down to where I cannot no longer go, to where I can see the studs, like the basic structure of me, like when I can go down to the atom. I don't know if that's possible. It's probably not possible, but I don't think I'll ever stop trying. Um, I feel like I know myself, but I also feel like there's always so much more about me to learn. Um, and to be honest, I fascinate myself. I don't know if that's arrogant or not, but I find myself to be interesting. So yeah. What else we got? Number 6. Has this changed the way you look at yourself or other people? Yes. Yes. Um, Without a doubt, I can say I look at myself differently now. Um, it's more like before seeing different patterns, I was aware of certain parts of me, and then obviously certain parts were missing. Now I feel like I can see more of the whole that is me, and I have a much better understanding of myself, and it has led me to confident, a much more confidence within myself. Um, so yes, definitely, I see myself differently. Um, and not even just that, just getting an understanding of my functions and seeing how I'm processing things. I've really learned to embrace and trust myself. And yeah, I see myself differently, just without a doubt. Um, but it is not just me. I feel that others see me differently as well. Um, some some for the better and some for the worse. Because I would say for this journey, I had to talk more to people to get an understanding of how they saw me because I couldn't see myself from the outside. And in doing so, there was you want to call it I want to call it a shift in power, but there was an openness that was required to do that, and an amount of sharing. An amount of sharing. I'm not sure how to describe it, but there's so much sharing back and forth that yes, other people see me differently as well, or at least that's the impression I've got from them. In quite a few negative ways, I've heard about how they saw me, and then there have been positive ways that I've heard about how they saw me. Like I will say there were interactions with people where people would be like, "You're a robot." Like years ago, I remember my wife, "You're a robot. You don't have any emotion," and I had no idea what she was talking about. No idea. It's like I would just look at her baffled, like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about? I'm clearly have emotions. I'm clearly expressing emotions." Like so many things that before I got typed, I did not see, and after getting typed and then talking to people, I have a much better understanding, and I can see like yes, the way they saw me was very different before I got typed, and then now that I've gotten typed and we've talked more and there's been open dialogue, the way they see me now is also different. And I think that it has been both for the positive and negative. I think there are ways that they think of me in a more positive fashion now, but I think there's also ways that they think of me in a more negative fashion now. And I think that before I didn't talk very much, and I definitely didn't talk about myself, and now that I have revealed so much of myself to them, it has affected the way they viewed me in the sense of I think it was just a shock, as in there seemed to be a lot of disbelief, and there seemed to be a lot of like, no, you cannot be what you appear to be, and you cannot be what you sound like you are, because I think it just didn't match the conception of me that they had in their mind. And like I said, it's in some ways better, in some ways worse. So yeah, that it's really hard to break down, but yes, I would definitely say it is affect how others see me. It is definitely affect on how I see myself, and I would say that it's also affect how I see other people. Getting to know myself, and like I said, you have to triangulate off of other people to get to know yourself. It is not like I'm trying to type people, but in a way I can't help but type people, because you start noticing certain functions, you start noticing certain interactions, you start noticing certain cognitive, I guess if you want to say styles, like ST, SF, NF, NT, so yeah, I can't help but notice other people. um I can't help but notice how it has affected how I see other people to a certain extent. But for the most part, I don't think that's very drastic. It's just the people that I talk to on a more regular basis. It has affected how I see them, not in a negative fashion. I don't think so, but in a way of feeling like I'm looking at my own cognition, and I'm always trying to look at their cognition. Um, yeah, I will say getting type has definitely left me more in the metacognition realm. Um, so I'm always looking at that. Do you feel this has helped you grow? Yes, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Um, I feel like this is probably the most growth I've ever done in life. Um, I mean, you grow as you age, regardless. You grow after different stages in life. So it's like I couldn't always see the old growth. You just grow. You're not always so aware of it. But this, I have been very much more aware of. So I would say yes, without a doubt, I've grown. I've changed. But again, that is my understanding of it. People might disagree with me on that. It's perfectly fine. I can't expect people to know what's in my mind. Like when I tell my wife things like this, she usually does disagree. And I'm like, well, that's all I can tell you. Like I can't bring you in my mind and show you, but you either agree or you disagree. It's up to you. I don't take offense either way. Yeah. Let's see. Did you hit Super Saiyan yet? All right. So one of my things was once I got typed, I wanted to hit Super Saiyan. What that meant was this tremendous level of growth where I've grown so much and made like a huge leap, a very big change. And the thing was, I could not figure out how to conceptualize that. I mean, partly because I'm taking an abstract conception and trying to make it, somewhat of a reality. But I couldn't figure out what that looks like. So it has been a year, and I can say that I don't think that I've hit Super Saiyan. I don't think I'll ever hit Super Saiyan. The reason being that bar keeps rising. So no matter how much growth I make, every time I grow, my anticipation of what Super Saiyan is grows. So as I rise up, the bar rises too. So I don't think I'll ever meet that. And I don't think I ever will know because again, I don't have a way to encapsulate it. But I will say, without a doubt, I feel like my cognition has evolved so much. And there's no way for anybody else to know that because nobody's in my mind. But yes, so no, I did not hit Super Saiyan, but maybe. I mean, it's sort of like if you say Dragon Ball, for example, right? All right, they become Super Saiyan. You're like, oh my god, you hit Super Saiyan. Now, if you go to like Dragon Ball Super, there's like a Super Saiyan God form. There's a Hyper Instinct. If you go to Dragon Ball GT, there's a Super Saiyan 4 form. There's Super Saiyan 3 form. So it's like even when you hit those marks, those plateaus, it always goes higher. So like in that way, maybe I did hit Super Saiyan because I definitely evolved and hit higher, but I'm always still looking up. I'm always still trying to get higher. So maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. At this present time, your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. What are some of the things that you realize about yourself, negative and positive? Okay. Some of the things I realized about myself, negative and positive. Well, realizing, shoot, what did I realize about myself? This negative or positive? It's a good question. And it's not like there's plenty of answers I know I have. I'm just trying to recall something concrete that I can express. Okay, so I'm Savior Sensor Thinking, right? ST. All right, so what this means is your saviors you do automatically, and you don't know the lot. Now, since I have masculine demons, those come into play every so often. I try to lean on my demons more often, but I do realize that I am very much ST. I am very much like, that is not accurate. I can see me pointing that out. No, you did not explain it correctly. That is not accurate. That is not ST accurate. And I see other people are like, we don't give a fuck. Why are you putting an emphasis on this shit? I can't help it. But yes, and even my best friend is ST, and when I talk to him and he does it to me, I laugh because I'm like, oh, that's what I sound like. That's what I sound like. So it's humorous. But yes. So I realize I'm very ST, and I do try to get better. And when at the time, if I catch it in the moment, I try to, all right, let's slowly try not to do this. Let's work out of it. But yes, I definitely see it. Actually, both of my closest friends are ST, which is interesting. All of us STs. Figured out even my mother is ST. Who knew that? Considering all the problems we had growing up, but we're different STs. She's TI and I'm TE. Yes, but yeah, that's one of the things I see that's somewhat of a negative. I wouldn't say it's a negative, but it's a negative to interacting with people, and I see it irritating people. So I try to, when I can, keep it under control. But yes, trying to make everything as accurate as possible, trying to make everything as correct as possible, trying to make everything as logical as possible. And especially realizing that a lot of people do not care about these things. So yes. Negative? No, that was the negative. Positive about myself? Oh, another negative about myself. I see that I am very pushy on the concepts. Um, so feeling like this is what something is. and you got the concept wrong. Um, when somebody's like, well, I think it's this and this, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not accurate. That is not the correct concept. You have not considered this, this, and this. And if you consider those things, you will see this is the clear, correct conclusion to come to. And again, people don't like it. They don't like it. Like I realized I'm doing. Oh, that all right. So this is the number one negative, if you want to say, thing that I am doing. I am not aware that I'm doing this. I'm trying to get better. Not aware when I'm doing it. It is called the worldview. It's like questioning somebody's worldview. Okay, so if somebody's like, "Hey, this is how I feel about this thing. This is what I again the concept. This is what I think it is. This is how I think this works," and I will question it. And to me, I feel like we're just having a conversation. We're just exploring the concept. But it to me it looks like there are just all these loose threads. Like I'm like, well, how did you come to this conclusion when you had these loose threads? What did you do about this loose thread? What did you do about this loose thread? Like, how did you get through all these loose threads to come to your conclusion? And people do not like that. People do not like that. And as Benjamin explained it to me, people have their worldview. They are happy and content in their worldview, and they do not want it questioned. They have decided what their worldview is. They have decided how they feel about things, and they feel like you are attacking them when you repeatedly ask questions about that. And that is something that I have realized that I do. Again, I am not aware of it when I'm doing it, but I am aware when people get pissed off. That's usually when I know it's like, oh shit. This has caused numerous conflicts. And I feel like it got worse because before I got typed, I don't think I was talking as much. I suspect that's got something to do with Blast Last. I'm not sure, but I was not talking as much. I was just super chill. And now I do talk more. And that has just gotten me in trouble because I do ask questions. And I'm partly like, I don't understand why asking questions is a big thing. I don't know why people get upset, but it is very clear to me that they do, and they don't like that shit. So yes, I have had conflicts with my best friends. I've had conflicts with all my friends. I have conflicts with my wife. I have conflicts with coworkers. I have conflicts with pretty much most people that I interact with on a semi-regular basis because of this. I know they probably think I'm an asshole. In fact, some of them have told me they think I'm an asshole. So, yes, but I'm trying to get better at it. I think I have made some improvements at it, and I'm trying to, as Dave say, get 1% better every day. So yes, I think I have improved. I have gotten better with that. I have learned to just try to vibe with people and not question their worldview. Um, but it's very difficult. I will say it's very difficult. Because it just seems like I would just say it's very difficult. So yes, that is something I struggle with on a daily basis, honestly. But that is something I can say that has been somewhat of a negative aspect I've noticed about myself that I struggle with. People have called me an asshole because of the way I kind of present myself. Outwardly, I come across very confident. I've never thought of myself as a particularly confident person. But outwardly, it comes off like that. I think it's the TE, but yes. I have a friend of mine who used to always make reference. She used to always say, "I have an ego." Never gave it much thought, to be honest. Never gave it much thought. And then recently, I asked her, because I mean, she said this for years. You go back like 20 years, she's been saying this, right? And recently, I asked her, why did she say that? Like, she's like, because you always come across like you had an ego. You're extremely confident. You had an ego. And I was sitting there like, I don't see that. And my wife has kind of said the same thing. Now, to be fair, yes, I have an ego. I mean, everybody has an ego, but I really never think of myself having an ego because I keep it so contained, so locked down that I never allow myself to be like, I'm the shit. I'm the fucking shit. Mainly because most of my life I did not believe that. Most of my life I felt low about myself. I did not have high self-esteem, shall we say. So yes, that has also changed though. While getting type, I will say that I do think better of myself. Like I said, I've always liked myself, but I did not always have the highest self-esteem because much as I like myself, the world, the external world did not share my opinion. But since I've gotten typed, I would say I have become more confident. So yeah, those are some of the negative aspects. Have you noticed a change in how you see others? Yes and no. Sort of like I said, I'm trying to look at others' cognition. So I've noticed a change in a way that I feel like I've gotten a better understanding of how other people think individually, not as a whole, but other individuals that I know, a better understanding of how they think. It has not affected my opinion on them and anything like that. Like I still think of them as I've always thought of them. Like either we were friends or we weren't friends. I don't know. I don't know, but it has affected how I see them in a way that I'm always looking to understand people and why they do what they do and stuff like that. Like, yeah. Realizing the importance of my principles to me. That's not actually not a question, but that's something I want to speak on. That is one thing that I kind of saw before I got typed, like my principles, but since I've gotten type, I realized like just how big of a impact they seem to have on me, and realizing that people don't share that. A a lot of people I'm around. I'm not saying nobody else has principles or anything like that, and I'm not even saying that the people I'm around don't have principles. They might share different principles, but as far as I can see, it's just there's a hierarchy of what's important from most important to least important. So it's not as if they don't have principles or possibly don't have as many principles. But I think a lot of times those principles are just not a high priority for most people. Where they seem to be a high priority for me. I was talking to a guy I work with today. Day before yesterday, and he was saying he told me I take myself too seriously. That's what he said. He was like, you take yourself too seriously, and I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, man, because you put so much emphasis on your principles, and when you do stuff, you say you try to do it perfectly. And I was like, yeah, these are just my internal standards. Like, I'm sure you have some type of internal standards, but obviously they're not the same as mine. But it's like, do I take myself too seriously? Depending on your point of view. I would not say so, but I can't say that his point of view is not valid. From a certain point of view, I do take myself too seriously. Definitely from his perspective, and I don't think that he's necessarily wrong. That's his opinion. I was about to say it's not necessarily a incorrect opinion. I mean, is an opinion correct, or can an opinion be incorrect? I don't know. Either way, wrong, right, matter of perspective. But I do see that my principles are very important to me, and a lot of people don't share that to that degree. Like, it's funny, like, looking back, my wife pointed out certain things like, oh, well, they might not tell you this because they don't want you to look at them differently, because this might not be this might not go with your values. This might actually go against your values. And people would hide things from me, or wouldn't necessarily tell me certain things that they might have otherwise if that wasn't the case. And my wife I remember she pointed this out a couple of times with different people, and I was kind of like, well, why? Why? And she's like, yeah, because the way you very clearly express your principles, excuse me, people will avoid that to make themselves not look in a bad light, or they might be worried about how you'll look at them. And this was, of course, this was before I got typed. Looking back, because at the time I couldn't understand it, but looking back now, I see what she was talking about. I did not realize, and I still don't realize, how vocal I'm being about my principles. Like, in my head, without a doubt, I see it. But I didn't realize I was outwardly expressing it. Like, it seems to come out even when I'm not I'm not like, hey, this is how I feel about theft. This is how I feel about prostitution. Like, I'm not coming out and saying it like that, but it must be coming out in casual conversation to the point that the other person is putting together, oh, okay, this is how he feels about certain things. Um, so that's interesting. Um, it kind of goes against me oversharing too much information, but I'm not aware I'm doing it. So I haven't figured out how to correct it yet. But yes, that's something I definitely see, like the importance of my principles to me and the lack of importance to other people. Um, yeah. Has OP knowledge changed how you view disagreements with people? Yes. Yes. I don't think I was big on a lot of disagreements before I got typed. I don't know. It's hard. It's like I almost feel like there are two me's. Like there's me now and there's me before I got typed. And I can remember certain things, but I can't remember all things about me before I got typed. So it's hard to say. But now I will say that I don't really get upset when I disagree with people. Like I'm very rarely. It's extremely rare that I'll get upset. Um I've noticed that I feel like that other person has a right to their opinion. They have a right to think how they want to think. Um, so I don't feel like they are wrong for having different thoughts or believing something different than I do, which is, as far as I can see, not the case for other people. Other people that I talk to very much get upset when people think differently than they do or come to a different conclusion. Um, I see that often. Obviously, it varies from person to person, but I do see that a lot. Um, but for me, no. When I have a disagreement with somebody, it usually just piques my curiosity. I want to get a better understanding of why do they think what they think. Like whenever I express myself, I almost always feel that I'm correct. Um all right, let me revise. I might say something and I'd be like, I don't know. It could be this, it could be that. So I don't always feel like I'm just right. I'm just it could be this, it could be that. I can see it different ways. I'm not sure. All right. But when I express myself that I feel like I have the correct answer, when I feel like I have the answer, I feel like I have the correct answer. But even though I feel like I have the correct answer, I am always open to the possibility that I might be incorrect. Okay? Um because one, nobody knows everything. Two, there are definitely people much smarter than I am. I'm a fucking idiot. Um, so there's that. Three, I know that I don't know everything. I know there's so much more that I don't know. And I know that um, even though I'm doing the best with what I have going on up here, everybody's fallible. Everybody could be wrong. So I'm going in thinking I am correct, but I'm going in open to being wrong. And that's how I do it. So that's usually why I'm like, okay, if I got this answer and you got this answer, okay, could you explain to me how do you get to your answer so I can understand? That part doesn't, it usually doesn't go over well. Um, people do not, people don't like explaining. People don't like explaining themselves. I'm not sure why. Um, like something I've heard is it's not my job to educate you. Which, all right, yeah, I mean, in a certain sense, it's not your job to educate me. But I'm not asking you to educate me. I'm asking you to give an explanation on your point of view, which I would think that, I mean, it's your point of view. Asking you for an explanation as to how you got it does not seem like is asking for much, because you stated it. It's your point of view. But people, there are people who do not see it like that. Um, I kind of think that when that happens, it's because they don't have an answer. They haven't thought it all the way out, which is fine. But if that's the case, just, I want to just say that, but maybe it's just like, well, if they say that, then they look foolish, or um, their argument goes to pieces. I don't know, but I don't understand how you could. I just don't understand how you can take that point of view. It's not my job to explain to you my point of view. I don't get it. I'm gonna be honest. I don't get it. I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense to me. Um, well, you need to go and look at this thing or look at that thing. Like, well, you saw it, right? That's what you're basing your argument on, right? So just give me the summary. Well, it's not my job to give you the summary. I don't understand. Never mind. Never mind. Either way, that's something that I guess is a pet peeve of mine. It's annoying. Shit, I forgot what I was even talking about. That shit took me so far off. Oh, disagreements with different people. So, yeah, I just want to get a better understanding. Because, like I said, I'm always open to the possibility I might be wrong. I don't have a problem being wrong. I wish to be. How can I put this? I want to be in truth. That's probably not a very articulate way to state that, but it's like, okay, some people want to be right, right? You want to win, you want to be right. Fine, your ego, whatever. I get it. I want to be in truth. All right, if what I'm saying is not correct, and what you're saying is in truth and it is correct, I will put down my argument and go to your argument. I have no issue with that, because that is truth. Fine. That's where I want to be. I want to be in truth. I want to be in what is correct. I don't want my side to win. I don't want to be the smartest person in the room. I I I just want to be in truth. So that's what's going through my mind when I'm having a disagreement with somebody. I'm always trying to get closer to truth. Um, Again, I think that falls in the principle pile. We're realizing my principle is important to me and not necessarily important to other people. Other people may not care about that as much, if any. So that's just a cross I have to bear. I will say it is weird to realize that you are in a world where truth is not of high value. I will say that is a hard pill to swallow. Um, I, you know what? I will say this. After getting typed, I have been okay. Before I was typed, there was this somewhat. There was this lonely part of me, right? Like this part of me that was lonely. I felt like I felt like I just didn't see people like me. Um, that I felt were close to being like me. Thinking like me, I guess. Like I have friends and different friends relate to different parts of me. But I didn't feel like there was anybody like me. I don't know if that's a common thought. I don't know if other people feel like that, but that's something I've always felt, and it's made me have this sense of loneliness. It's been there for years. I will say, after getting typed, it somewhat gave me an explanation for that because I'm kind of a rare type. I'm kind of like an unusual type. I don't know what the numbers are. I'm sure there are other people like me in the world, but unfortunately, I don't think I've ever met any. Um, but I will say, after getting typed, and after learning more about myself, and after getting a better understanding of my cognition and looking at how people communicate, how information is passed back and forth to each other, just I feel like, in a way, all right, this might be a downside of learning so much about yourself. I feel like, in a way, I, by going so deep inside myself, I pulled away from this common ground that people communicate on, this common ground that people share, right? This common language. And it feels like everybody's on Earth, and I used to be on Earth. Now I feel like I'm in outer space and I'm circling the Earth, and there's communication back and forth, but I'm not on Earth. That's how it feels. I know it probably makes no sense, but that's how it feels. So there's so much I'm aware so much more now that I feel so outside of standard communication between people, which has caused my sense of loneliness to I wouldn't say it's gotten worse, but it's felt like it's different. Like it's now a different type of loneliness because I feel like once you've seen and understood some things about people communicating and how people are communicating and realizing like everybody's kind of in their own subjective reality, even though we all share an objective reality. Once you start seeing this, you realize just how much people are not seeing people and how much people are actually talking past each other and not really truly understanding what the other person is saying, and how much people are somewhat self-delusional of what they think is going on is not really going on. And it's like so it's like at that point you're not on Earth anymore, you're outside sort of orbiting. And it's like that old saying of when everyone is crazy, you're the one that's insane. Yes, that leads to a certain type of loneliness. To realize that you are not truly communicating on the level that you think you are. Yeah, if anything, and I don't think most people try to go so far down and knowing about themselves and their type. So most people might not run into this problem, but if I was gonna say there was any downside to this whole thing, I guess you can say that that's the downside. I don't know what to do about that. And I know some people are probably like, dude, I don't know what the fuck you talking about. Like I don't know what you're talking about. Cool. Some people are like, man, you sound crazy. Cool. But if there's anyone out there who does understand what I am saying, you don't want this. It's not necessarily horrible, but it's not for everybody. It's like how what does Dave and Shannon call it? Townfolk land. It's like stay in townfolk land. Stay in townfolk land, be comfortable, live your life, be awesome. Because once you get so far out of townfolk land that you really start to see things, it changes so much. I guess that's just all part of the hero's journey, I guess. I have to do a thing on the hero's journey because I have some thoughts on there. But yes. Anyway, I'm sure I probably sound depressing at this point. Yes. All right, next question. Do you see yourself differently after getting typed? Absolutely. Um, I'm sure I probably spoke on this already, but yes, I see myself as a different person. Um, God, I feel like I'm learning so much about myself, and yes, I see myself as different. And learning more about myself, I'm trying to change myself um, for the better. Like learning more, trying to get a better understanding on how I operate and what's going on with me. I am trying to turn my life into, I don't know, like the best that I can be, become the best version of me. Yes, I see myself different. I see myself differently after getting typed, without a doubt. Without a doubt. Um, and I think it's fair to say, matter of fact, I know um, other people see me differently. And I think I spoke on that earlier. Like, there's some good and some bad, but yes, other people see me differently. I don't know. I don't know what to do about that, but yes, I see myself better. I see myself as having evolved more. Um, so yes. Last question: Do you see other people differently after getting typed? I'm pretty sure I actually answered that one earlier too, but yes. Um, in a certain way, yes. I just see other people with somewhat of a better understanding and much more of a coming from a place of understanding um, than coming from more of a place of understanding is how I see people. Less of less of any kind of adversarial point of view. I realized that people are just people, and people see things and people process things differently. And I think that we as humans lose sight of that. That's something I always try to keep in mind. And um, you might think a person's an asshole, and they might be, but just because of that doesn't mean that they are doing things just to be a dick, or that they are necessarily wrong, or just there's so many ways you can bend that, you know. But yes, I do see people somewhat differently, but more open mindedly. I see people more open minded um, thing now. Like less in a closed minded fashion. I see people more in an open minded fashion. Like, all right, if we don't disagree, I don't feel any harsh feelings about it or anything like that. It just didn't disagree. So, um, that is all 14 questions. And we got an hour and a half. I don't know if this is my longest video, but this is up there. I had hoped this to be a long video, and I wanted to give you guys as much information as I could. I hope this is of interest, um, and you know, hopefully this was enjoyable. If anybody made it through this, thank you all, and until next time, peace.